Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful November the 15th, 2019. Rondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, I guess I'm a little dazed and confused. I was flicking channels last night. I thought I was watching a football game. Next thing I know, a hockey game broke out.
It's all fair and level war. I thought they only played hockey on ice. I didn't know they moved it to the grass, Big C. But maybe sometimes people just got to get their frustration out. It's all fair, love, and war. A lot of good things happening in the basketball universe. Carmelo Anthony found a place to lay his pillow, Big C, up in the Rose Garden, Portland, Oregon. I think he'll be okay fitting in with that team. They really need some help. Also, we love college football. There's nothing better than NFL, but we do have Big C's Friday Night Lights. I want to say Big C Sports, brought to you by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Also, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television and launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart universe TVs all over the universe. Big C, I want to just say we get into so many things. We have this National Suicide Hotline. I love the way you honor the veterans. Unlike a lot of programs, you don't just do it for 1 or 2 days, Big C. You've been doing it for a long time. People going through issues, especially for the holidays. National Suicide Hotline for military veterans, 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. We do it for the military, but it's for anybody, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, with all our veterans have gone throughout the history of America, you can never thank them or appreciate them enough. But one of the things that this country doesn't do enough for the veterans, Charlton, is pay homage to them every day and pay attention to them every day. Once their tours of service have ended, basically, Charlton, they're a forgotten part of American society. And many of them fall into depression because of this, Charlton, because they're used to being with such a large support group of people and friends that are similar to them, Charlton, that have joined the military to protect our country.
Yeah.
And when that time has ended, Charlton, they've come back from their tours of service. They've been turned out. It's like, a racehorse been turned out to passes. They go out there and survive. You'll be okay.
Yeah.
And yet they need that support base, Charlton. They need that family camaraderie that they had when they were active duty members. And we need to find a way to stem this horrific disease called suicide in America. The 1-800 Suicide Prevention Hotline number that we have, Charlton, is one of those devices that these veterans have a source to reach out to speak to people who will not be judgmental on them, to hopefully stem them to the right path, Charlton, to get them off that slippery slope that they've been standing on, trying to decide do they want to take a positive or negative flight in life. But our veterans need more than what we've been giving them as a society here in America.
Yeah.
We need to find ways on every day, throughout television, throughout the media, throughout the print, to pay homage and let these veterans know that they're respected and always thought of.
Always thought of. And you can just simply give up the number 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255 and reach out and get some help. Before we get into Big C Friday Night Lights, I want to give a special shout out to a wonderful person, Brittany Bagley of ABC News in Northern California. I really think she's one of the best TV personalities in the universe. Brittany, I told you I'd say hi to you, and I mean that from all my heart, and I wish you nothing but the best. Big C, I know Friday Night Lights, it's amazing. High school football is where a lot of things start. We know that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. And without boys and girls sports, there'd be no one making $100 million athletic budget for the Blue Blood college football programs and basketball programs. There'd be no professional athletes because it all starts and sometimes it ends at the high school level. Big C, I just want to get a special thought from you going into the playoffs. That means a lot of high school players, they have already played their last competitive sports. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, the playoffs was something that a lot of high school kids gun for. It was something that I never had an opportunity to participate in back in my high school days. The season ended, and we went right into basketball from that point. But the extension of the high school football season, Charlton, potentially children going out winning a championship, is the height of many of them of their careers.
Yeah, it really is. So, and always, as we always say, don't make excuses. The buck stops with you. You're in the prime of your life. Don't let anyone talk you into doing anything stupid. Please, no drinking and driving. Don't let your friends drink and drive. Be the one that says that the buck stops with me. Be that designated driver. Call a parent. Call Uber. Call somebody, but take the keys. Don't let them do it. You got your whole life ahead of you. Speaking of having your whole life ahead of you, national number 1, modern day Santa Ana, number 2. Well, Santa Ana is in Southern California. Most people think Disneyland and Anaheim, but they've had the top high school football program in the last 3 years in the country, Big C. Number 2, St. John Bosco Bellflower. They're in the same league, the Trinity League. Number 3 is St. Louis of Honolulu, Hawaii, followed by Lowndes of Valdosta, Georgia. Number 6 is IMG Academy out of Bradenton, Florida. And I know, Big C, as we go back and forth across the country, there's so many players that we hear about at the college level. There's a player that plays for the University of Minnesota, the Golden Gophers. I think he's 6'7", and he's like 400 pounds. He played at IMG, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he's a huge offensive tackle, Charlton, and, you know, he's a tremendous athlete when you think about a man of that stature being basically 7 feet tall, playing football as an offensive tackle, and he's still growing into his body.
Still growing into his body, Big C. Number 7, Mentor of Ohio. Number 8, Connor Canyon, and they're a good program on the rise. Number 9, Katy out of Texas. And then number 10, Longview out of Texas. Number 11, St. Thomas Aquinas. And then depending on what polls, I have De La Salle of Concord, California, rounding out Big C's top 10 Friday Night Lights. And I know everybody has these hopes of going on to the next level, and just make sure you get your education with you as well. I always want to say that to all of our young kids. Go out there and be safe. Big C, if mine is a terrible thing to waste, don't just lift weights, Big C. Your thoughts?
No, it is, Charlton. I mean, whether you're playing athletics or not, you know, you think about those wonderful years of high school, the maturation process that you go through, the growth, and the friends that you have for lifelong endeavors that you will grow up with, Charlton. But, you know, we talk about athletics so much is that we don't talk about academics as much as we need to. You know, college is a great place to end up, whether you're an athlete or not.
Yep.
But it also comes down to the academics that are set by these institutions, whether you succeed or fail.
That's very true. So we want to make sure that Big C Sports, just read the books, put your head in the books, Big C. I want to also pay homage as we get into football for the historical black college universities all over this great country. Oftentimes, you don't hear much about them unless you're on Big C Sports. I do care about just mentioning these programs, and not necessarily who's ranked number 1 or who's ranked number 10, but just giving them some great acknowledgement because they're academic institutions first and athletics second. So Southern University out of the SWAC, North Carolina A&T out of the MEAC. You have Alabama State out of the SWAC. Florida A&M University out of the MEAC, Grambling State University out of the SWAC. You have Jackson State University also out of the SWAC. Norfolk State University out of the MEAC. Coppin State, they're out of the MEAC, Big C. Texas Southern University out of the SWAC, and also out of the MEAC is Delaware State. So there's a lot of programs that are out there, and they're getting their groove on too, and they'll also have the chance to go on to the greater things in life after college football. But I think this, Big C, because I didn't experience it, but of the people that went to the HBCs of African-American descent, they felt like they got more cultural love than they did at the mainstream schools. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, one of the things about the kids that have gone to the historical black colleges, Charlton, you're always walking around campus with somebody who looks like you, who has the same social ideals that you have, that are brought up the same type of way that you have. And this is one of the gains from going to a historical black college, Charlton, is because you're not ostracized from other entities that are on campus where you can't join or participate.
Yeah.
Everyone that's there is just like you. one of the things about the historical black colleges, Charlton, it was an original way that African Americans were able to get a college education in the United States.
That's right.
And so many now do not attend because they have an opportunity to go to mainstream colleges, a lot of them on athletic scholarships, Charlton. But those historical black colleges have stayed strong in the communities and laid the fabric and groundwork for a lot of black movement in America. And one of the things that's going to be celebrated this upcoming weekend, Charlton, is the Historical Black College Hall of Fame, Football Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
Wow.
That's going on this weekend, Charlton, and it's a wonderful event. You know, we only talk about the National College Hall of Fame, but there is a Historical Black College Football Hall of Fame that's having its induction ceremony this weekend.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm glad you brought that up. I love knowing about things that are going on anywhere in the universe. Big C. I want to get into some college football, and it's almost like going to that amusement store, that amusement park, where you get on one roller coaster, it takes you upside down and spins you around. Then you get on another thing that spins you upside down and around, and then you throw up because you ate too many corn dogs. But there's so much to love if you love football. I was talking to an old-time sports guy today, Walt Gray, Northern California, ABC News. Really appreciated him. Met him many, many moons ago. Also, I want to get into tonight's college football. I don't know why they do it on Friday night. It should be for the high school kids, but I know money talks. Louisiana Tech, they're 8-1 at Marshall, Big C. And so that's a game on CBS Sports Net on artificial surface. And then Marshall favored by 3.5 in that game. Out on the West Coast, Fresno State 4-5. Last year they won the Mountain West Conference. They're at San Diego State. That is 7-2. That's a 9:30 kickoff on ESPN2. On grass surface, and Fresno State's favored by 1.5. When I saw San Diego State play a game last week, and they were knocked off by Nevada down at San Diego at Qualcomm Stadium, it still reminds me that place looks nothing like it used to when they had an NFL team there, but it's still good enough to host football. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, Qualcomm is an outstanding stadium, Charlton. It had been renovated, but it hadn't become up to modern standards. You got to think about a stadium that was built in the early to mid-'60s and expected to house an NFL team. You saw the Raiders leaving Oakland.
Yeah.
That stadium was built along the same time that Qualcomm Stadium was built down in San Diego, and so it's adequate for a college team, Charlton, but not up to date for an NFL team.
Very well said. We're going to get into Saturday's games. Big Steve's thoughts. Everybody has their own opinion, but I love when we have college football that really means something, and it's always important to me just to pay attention and tell those young kids, make sure you get your education too. Even though you're flying around the country, it seems like 2 out of 7 days you're on an airplane, Big C, going and coming. I want to get into a team that has to have a little bit of revenge on his mind. That's Alabama Crimson Tide. They're coming in ranked number 4. They're 8-1 on the season. They're at Mississippi State, which is 4-5, Big C. It's a noontime kickoff on ESPN. It's on a grass surface, and Alabama's favored by 17.5, and they should cover, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they should cover. You know, when you look at Tua, he's going to be a game-time decision in this game coming off that ankle injury that he suffered some 3 weeks ago, Charlton, and you saw him struggling last week against LSU. But Alabama has enough horses, and you know, Mac Jones can come in and fill in adequately at quarterback if Tua's not able to go. Mississippi State will be outmanned in this game.
It would be amazing if Tua did not play. That would just show. They can't say, oh, he got re-injured in the LSU game. That meant they would have put him out there too soon. I think Tua will play somehow, some way, in my opinion. Number 25, Indiana. Thinking of the Hoosier State, known as a basketball power. They're 7-2 quietly in the Big Ten. They're at number 11, Penn State, 8-1. They fell to Minnesota last week. It's a noontime kickoff on ABC Sports on a grass surface. The Nittany Lions are favored by 14.5, and they have to be kicking themselves after what happened at Minnesota last week. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they were marred by turnovers last week against Minnesota, Charlton, and fell from the ranks under unbeaten. They're going to be facing the Hoosiers at home in Happy Valley this week. The Hoosiers lost their starting quarterback also, so they're going to be playing with a backup, so Penn State should easily cover the point spread.
They should easily cover. Number 12, Florida. The Gators are 8-2. They're at Missouri, which is 5-4, the SEC team, the newest member. It's a noontime kickoff on CBS Sports, artificial surface. And the Gators are favored by 6.5 points. Big C, are you buying it?
Well, Kyle Trask had his biggest game of his college career last week, passing for 346 yards for the Gators. But Kelly Bryant is supposed to be back this week for the Tigers, Charlton. If he's back, he's going to be a formidable opponent for that Gators defense, Charlton. It can cause them problems. If Kelly Bryant's playing, Missouri can cover.
Well, another team that they've been playing great, but maybe too late. You have Michigan State. They're 4-5. They're at number 14, Michigan, which is 7-2, and playing really like a top 10 team lately. It's a noontime kickoff on Fox Sports, artificial surface, and Michigan's favorite by 13.5. They should have been playing this way 4 weeks ago. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this game is more about Michigan State with a lot of inner turmoil that they're going. The quarterback, Lewinsky, had alleged suffered a concussion last week's game. Charlton coach D'Antonio did not set him down. He kept him in the game playing. So there was a lot of questions from the administration. D'Antonio's been struggling the last couple of years at Michigan State. If he falls to Michigan, he may be falling out the door of favor at Michigan State.
It's a lot warmer on the West Coast, just for thought, Big C. And that's not tampering either. Number 15, Wisconsin. They're 7-2 on the season. They're at Nebraska 4-5, which used to be a very difficult place to win. It's a noontime kickoff on the Big Ten Network. Artificial surface. Wisconsin is going into Nebraska favored by 14.5. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is two teams that you can call Big Red, but the Red from up north in Wisconsin is going to run over the Red out on the plains in Nebraska. We talked about Nebraska's program the other day that has this program fallen too far to fix. They won't get anything right against Wisconsin.
Not against Wisconsin with that running game, Big C. A game that's intriguing to me is number 21 Navy. You know, we love paying homage to the military. The Naval Academy, they're 7-1. And they're ranked in the country at number 21 with a 7-1 record. And they're at number 16, Notre Dame, which is 7-2. And that's a 2:30 kickoff on NBC Sports. Artificial surface. Notre Dame's favored by 8.5. But they've struggled to win the last two games at home, Big C. And this team from the academy, they can run the football. It would not really be an upset if it happens with Navy going in there and winning in South Bend, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Navy is one of those teams that keeps the offense off the field because of their ground control offense, Charlton. They will pound the ball down Notre Dame's throat in this game. Ian Book, you think about him, he was Notre Dame's leading rusher, the quarterback in their last game. So if they're relying on their quarterback to run the ball, they're in for a long day. I like Navy in this game.
Yeah, it seems like when Book is not even an option kind of running back or quarterback. He's just a guy that has to run a lot, Big C. Minnesota. Man, you cannot look ahead this time. They are ranked 7 in the country. They are 9-0 on this season. They're at number 22 Iowa, which is 6-3 on this season. That's a 4 o'clock kickoff on Fox Sports. Artificial surface, and Iowa's favored by 2.5. They have one of the best settings in college football where they salute the kids that are going through some issues at the hospital overlooking the stadium. And I'm telling you, if there's an upset smelling, it smells like it could be, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Iowa's one of those teams that always plays very emotional football at home. But I like what P.J. Flick has the Golden Gophers right now, Charlton. This is a team that believes in themselves. Everyone will say, well, they don't have a strong schedule. They play in a Power 5 conference, and they've beaten all their opponents up to this point, Charlton. Minnesota's looking to go 10-0 for the first time in school history.
I love that scene we saw in Minneapolis last week when the whole student body and the fans came onto the field. I wish we had more of that, Big C. I want to go to number 1, LSU. Talk about not overlooking somebody. They're 9-0 on the season. They just went on the road and whooped Alabama. Now, you know it's tough when a college football team or an NFL team has to go on the road back-to-back. Sometimes them good boys can sneak up on you with that mousetrap. Mississippi's 4-6 on the season. It's a 7 p.m. kickoff on ESPN. Artificial surface. LSU's favored by 20.5. I think they win, but I don't know if they cover the spread, Big C. Your thoughts?
LSU is rolling, Charlton. You think about the dominance of the Tigers program. This is a team that has beat 4 top 10 teams this year, Charlton. So as you look at LSU rolling and what they have offensively and defensively, this is not a cocky team. This is a team that time has arrived.
This time has arrived, but sometimes them Southern boys can turn that clock back. I'm very interested to see if they are emotionally up or will they start slow. They're still young men, Big C. We'll see what happens. The biggest game on the weekend, rankings-wise, is number 8 Oklahoma. They're 8-1. They're at number 10 Baylor. Now Baylor is 9-0 down there in Waco. They have a beautiful stadium. It's a night game, a 7:30 kickoff on ABC Sports Artificial Surface. Now Oklahoma's favored by 9.5. I know they dropped that game to Kansas State, but Oklahoma rarely loses twice in a year unless the second loss is in the bowl games. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Oklahoma has struggled its last 2 games. They lost to Kansas State. They barely squeaked by Iowa. It's been the same for Baylor. They squeaked by in their last 2 games. It's come down to the last drive of the game for them to win. The loser of this game is automatically eliminated from playoff contention.
Yeah, I love this time of year. You cannot take anyone lightly, Big C. Number 24, Appalachian State, 8-1. They're at Georgia State, 6-3, and that's a 7:30 kickoff, ESPNU. Artificial Surface, Appalachian State favored by 15.5. They just knocked off South Carolina. I want to come out to the West Coast, and, you know, to me, everything's cyclical. It goes up and down. You have UCLA. They're 4-5 on the season, but they might be the best 4-5 season. If that's an oxymoron, the best 4-5 team, Big C, in the country, but they might be the best 4-5 team in the country. However, they're at number 9 Utah, which is 8-1, and they're just waiting on people. They're waiting for the chance to get invited to the dance. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff on Fox. It's going to be cold up there in Utah, Big C. Artificial Surface, and Utah's favored by 20.5. Now, I still think about that Washington State game against UCLA, so I don't know if they'll get the points, Brad, but I think they'll get the win. Your thoughts?
Well, as you look at UCLA, Charlton, if they win out, ironically, they'll be in the Pac-12 title game.
Wow.
That lets you know how weak their conference is.
Hey, it's all cyclical, Big C. Just like the ocean waves, the tide is high, sometimes it's low. I want to just not skip over maybe the most consistent program on the West Coast, if you can call Idaho the West Coast, over the last decade and a half. That'd be Boise State. New Mexico is 2-7. They're on the road at number 19, Boise State, 8-1. Boise State just got by Wyoming last week by the skin of their teeth. It's a 10:15 kickoff on ESPN2. Artificial Blue Surface, Big C. And Boise's favored by 27.5, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the Broncos are always tough at home up there on that blue turf, Charlton. A lot of ducks and geese think that it's water, and they come flying in there and realize that they're going to get a little rug burn on their
Pull
side.
up. So if you get a little duck or geese with some rug burn under your nose up there in Boise, Idaho, take it back to the store. Arizona, the Wildcats, 4-5. At number 6, Oregon. Oregon is 8-1. It's almost like that little candy that you don't let the kid reach up to get, but he sees it, so he wants it real bad. And you talked about ducks being, rug burn on a duck, Big C. It's a 10:30 kickoff, ESPN, so it's a late night game. Artificial Surface in Oregon's favored by 26.5, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Kevin Sumlin is coaching for his coaching life at the University of Arizona, Charlton. There's a lot of people a little disgruntled with the program in the last 2 years that he's been there, that he has not been able to get him over the hump and get at least 8 wins out of a season. I don't think he's going to be able to pull this one out against the Ducks.
Well, the Ducks are flying high, Big C. I want to go into your favorite program on the West Coast, Big C. Maybe going back 20 years to get it, but it's still good. University of Southern California Trojans. They are 6-4, and I might say they're the best 6-4 team in the country, Big C. They're at Cal Berkeley, which is 5-4. Southern Cal is bowl eligible, but when you only have 6 wins after 10 games, that's not turning the good old boys on down in Southern California. Cal Berkeley, they can become bowl eligible if they can knock off the mighty Trojans at 5-4. I don't know if that will happen. It's 11 o'clock kickoff, East Coast time on Fox Sports 1. Artificial Surface, and Southern Cal's favored by 6.5 at Strawberry Canyon. Before I get your thoughts on that game, you'll probably be asleep by the time kickoff happens, based on your thoughts.
Well, I'll be sleeping. Most of the East Coast will be asleep also, Charlton,
Yeah.
so we're most likely going to miss that game. USC put up a lot of points last week against Arizona State. They have an opportunity against Cal to duplicate that feat, Charlton. But as you say, they're a 6-4 team looking for a mid-level bowl game.
Yeah, they're looking for a mid-level bowl game. Everybody has their own flavor of Kool-Aid and how much they love what happens in the world of sports. And we have, before we get into the Big C timeout, I want to get to this thought of what happened in Cleveland last night with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. The fight last night between the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers What does it mean to the NFL? I just want to think it's ironic. The fight happened in the last 8 seconds of the game. The game was out of hand. But even before that fight, I think Cleveland was targeted twice and had players ejected for targeting on the Steelers players. 2 receivers. One guy was bleeding through his ear. I think Juju Smith-Schuster and the other guy, I don't recall. So this was a build-up. And I don't know who you blame. Sometimes you just blame the person that did something foolish. But before we get into what happened with the players that were suspended, Big C, give me your thought on what should have happened. Because if Vontaze Burfict did this and he was playing for Cincinnati and even the Raiders, they would have done something to prevent the buildup. Does that make any sense, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if you can prevent the buildup of actions through a contest, Charlton. Anybody, for every negative reaction, there's a double negative reaction to that.
Yeah.
We all see the final outcome of this with Myles Garrett pulling off Rudolph's helmet and slamming it against his head, and him being kicked by Pouncey and another player.
Yeah.
So, but, as a game evolves, this comes down to coaching as much as it does with the players. At some point, you got to put some responsibility on a coach. You realize that the former defensive coordinator in Cleveland last year was Greg Williams.
Yeah.
Greg Williams was the defensive coordinator with the New Orleans Saints when they had Bountygate.
Yep.
And so I think a lot of that resonated over to last night, because here's Freddie Kitchens trying to find an identity as a head coach. And there was a lot of thought a couple of weeks ago that he had lost his ball club, and he said he wasn't concerned about his future. So when you're not concerned about your future, you may pull out any antics and tell players to do anything that they can.
Yeah.
But this was also a spontaneous reaction last night by Myles Garrett. We saw his actions as horrific as they were.
Yeah.
No one wants to go out and try to personally maim another employee when you're out on the field, Charlton. But also you got to look at the instigator of the incident. It starts with Mason Rudolph. Yes, Myles Garrett took him to the ground. Should have been a roughing call. The official should have been right there. But Mason Rudolph took it into his own hands by kicking Myles Garrett in the groin. That's the part of the whole action that's overlooked by everybody.
Yeah.
The quarterback kicked the defensive lineman in the groin. As a layman person on the street, if somebody comes up in your workplace and kicks you in the groin, are you going to say, hey, that's okay, my bad,
Nope.
we'll get over it? Will you do that, or would you react in a retaliatory way?
Yeah.
That's what Myles Garrett did. He went over the top. This is not the first time that a player has taken the helmet off an opposing player. Manny Fernandez did it back in the 70s.
Yeah.
Lyle Alzado did it back in the 80s, Charlton.
Yeah.
So we've had multitudes of this where players have taken off the helmet and swung them at an opponent. It just so happened that it struck last night. I understand Roger Goodell's position, saying, okay, I'm going to suspend the man indefinitely. That means he's going to be gone for a year from the NFL for actions detrimental to the league.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. Pouncey got a 3-game suspension for kicking Garrett in the head, but he had his helmet on.
Yeah.
One of the players from the Browns got a 1-game suspension. But there also needs to be some copious fines that are handed out. I know that they're talking about fining Rudolph $125,000. He should get at least a game suspension. I think the commissioner missed the boat on that because he was the instigator.
Yeah.
Not only did he kick Garrett in the groin on the ground, but he got up and chased him after he pulled the helmet off.
Yeah.
So he wasn't satisfied with the kicking. He wanted even more. Myles Garrett responded in a negative fashion, but both of these players are culpable for what occurred last night.
Yeah.
And the NFL is justified. I mean, everybody that was involved in that brawl should have got at least a game suspension.
Yeah.
But I think the league was kind to being soft on the quarterback, as you're saying you got to protect the quarterback, but you cannot protect the quarterback when he's assaulting another player also, Charlton.
I agree with what you're saying. So if Mason Rudolph, the only one that did not get suspended, but it was his kick to the groin that started everything. And people act like they don't see that. Maybe they don't want to see it, but I just think it's horrific. But if he were to walk up and kick Roger Goodell in the groin, I'm sure he would at least get suspended, not just fined. That's my opinion, and I'm not even being flippant. I mean, everybody who's ever had that happen, you could have caused some physical damage to people, just as much as you can being hit in the head by a helmet. You don't believe it? Have someone hit you in the head with a helmet? Have that same
look
person.
At Yadier Molina. He's the catcher for the St. Louis Cardinals, Charlton. In the first third of the Major League season, he was hit with a foul tip off the plate in the testicles, Charlton. He had to have emergency surgery.
Yeah.
So, that is a region of the body that is very sensitive. So, you think about what a knee potentially could do. We see fighters all the time when they hit below the belt, where they cringe down and they stop the fight, give him time to recover. So Mason Rudolph escalated this thing to the point where other players got suspended because of his hot-head actions.
Yeah.
And what's ironic about it, when you look at the complexity of the whole thing, Mason Rudolph's a white quarterback.
Yeah.
Myles Garrett is a black defensive lineman. Maurice Pouncey, a black offensive lineman. And the other Cleveland Brown player was a black defensive lineman.
Yeah.
All the black players got suspended on this, Charles.
Yeah, and the white kid started it with a kick to the groin. Just watch it on TV and then say your opinion about it. I just think it's egregious what happened, but we'll talk about that, later in the weekend as we see what happens coming up with players. We're going to take what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. We're going to come back and talk about more of Big C's thoughts on the role of the NFL. We'll take the Big C timeout, and we hope that you'll come back and join us. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause, and you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on my two favorite apps called Google and Alexa. Say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You're welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television, also launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and other smart TVs all over the universe. I want to get into one more thought before we get into this talk of what happens this weekend. I love football, and I know, and I want your thoughts, Big C, because sometimes the universe, Colin Kaepernick can't find work. I know they're letting him do the tryout thing on a Saturday, and people are coming in, and they're going to have, not even every team is going to be there. But here's a player, and I want America to listen. Here's a player that people were told by mainstream that he would not salute the flag, and so they thought he was not good enough to play in the NFL, even though he exercises his rights as a person to do what you want to do. He didn't do anything illegal. And I just want to take this angle because it happened. You couldn't even script this, but the universe scripted it. Mason Rudolph started that whole scene last night when he kicked a man in the groin. Kicked him in the balls, Big C, no pun intended. And no one even talks about it. And at the end of the day, he got a beat down, which happens to a lot of men when you fight someone bigger and stronger than you are. But a man who kicks another man in the cojones, my Latin American brothers call it that, he just gets a fine. A man who stands up for liberty and justice for all can't get a job. BC, I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, Charlton, I mean, the instigator is the one who walks away, but this happens all the time in sports. You think about even a flag when it's thrown on the football field. You get a retaliatory flag all the time because the guy who initiated the incident, it might have been seen but not paid attention to, and the referee catches the full act from the person who retaliates. This is how unfair sports are all the time, Charlton.
Yeah. Mason
Rudolph is going to get away with a slap on his hand. He's going to get a little $125,000 fine from the league. But you're talking about Myles Garrett. He's going to lose in base salary alone at least $1.4 million, Charlton, not counting incentives. And he was one of the top sackers in the NFL. He was going to be a Pro Bowler again. He's going to lose those incentive clauses out of his contract. So this is a really hefty fine that he's going to have to pay for in this. And it's not even the worst fights that have occurred in the NFL. I mean, we go back over the years, and we think about Albert Hainsworth stomping Andre Good on the head with his cleat, cutting it open, Charlton, when he was with the Tennessee Titans and Good was with the Dallas Cowboys. I think about Andre Johnson, getting into a fight. I'm trying to remember the defensive back that he got in the fight, Cortland Finnegan, when Andre was in Houston and Cortland was in Tennessee. So these fights have been going on for a long time. Richie Incognito, had to eat his own helmet against Antonio Smith of the Houston Texans. So NFL has seen its sordid fights over time, and yet nobody has come to this level of being, suspended that the league is enforced this time around.
Yeah, and so it opened up on opening news. But, there's something called the Everett R. Moore Award, which is for integrity and broadcast journalism. you're supposed to tell the truth. Both sides of the truth. So anyone, and I'm not defending, I think it was a bad look for the league. I think both teams got fined $230,000. But for anyone that's grandstanding about Mason Rudolph could have been injured in there, have him come kick you in your cojones.
Well, but Charlton, look at this. Well, what does the NFL do all the time throughout games that delays the process of a game? Thing called instant replay.
Yeah.
Where they go to the booth and replay the play.
Yeah.
I mean, the NFL has an opportunity, and all the media outlets have an opportunity to do that also. But they're not going to show the fairness side of that, Charlton, because it will show the white guy being the villain.
Yeah.
And that's not how you want to portray the NFL, is that a white quarterback is an instigator of a negative action that's occurring in a game. You want to leave it that the black players got suspended and leave it at that. And I'm not being racist and I'm not being divisive.
Just Google it.
I'm being what I saw. And I played this game at that level, so I understand what players go through in games. And back in the day, when I played, and we're going to always say back in the day, we were allowed to punish people on the field. I mean, and they've taken a lot of that away from players now where you can't touch quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I mean, if I rendered a quarterback unconscious, it was no big deal. They had a backup on the sideline, let him come in the game.
Yeah.
He was being paid also. Try to get him next. But we were able to hit people, Charlton. We settled our grievances on the field through physicality, not through this cupcake stuff that they have now where you can't touch this guy and this guy has immunity from everything, and that becomes a quarterback.
Yeah.
And so when you hit these quarterbacks, and a big part of Rudolph's, being pissed last night was, hell, he had thrown 4 interceptions, couldn't produce a touchdown, and this guy's on primetime television.
Yeah.
And looking like he did not belong in the league. And, last time these two quarterbacks met, they combined for 15 touchdown passes when they were at Oklahoma and Oklahoma State facing each other.
Yeah.
And put up 114 points on the scoreboard. And couldn't muster anything last night, Charlton. So frustration rolled over. He took it out on Garrett. Now the league is taking it out on Garrett.
Yeah, I mean, it's all bad, but if anyone walks up and kicks you in the balls, just tell me that you say it's okay, man. It's okay. It's not okay. Big C, I want to get into the Big C's thoughts on this NFL football coming up. And we're starting with what could be a preview of at least a playoff game or maybe even the AFC Championship game. The Houston Texans 6-3 at the Baltimore Ravens. They're 7-2. Sunday is a 1 o'clock kickoff Sunday on CBS Sports. And the Ravens are favored by 4.5, and we should be a very good battle of quarterback. Your thoughts?
Well, this is an excellent opportunity for the NFL to see what's the highlight of the league for the years to come, Charlton, from the quarterback perspective. You got two of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the league facing each other. You got Deshaun Watson out of Houston, Lamar Jackson out of Baltimore. But, 3 years ago, Deshaun Watson was the highlight of the NFL,
right.
Charlton. He had taken the NFL by storm as a rookie.
Yep.
He had set records until he had blown out his knee after his 7th start, Charlton, in the NFL. He was what we see now in Lamar Jackson. He's become more of a prototypical passer out of the pocket, but he still possesses that mobility to extend plays. What we see now in Lamar Jackson, we saw it several years ago in Colin Kaepernick, did the same type of thing as well as with Michael Vick.
Yeah.
That same mantra of quarterback. They just weren't highlighted as much and showcased as Lamar Jackson is now. I think it's great for the league. I think it's great for the U.S. and the world to be able to see these two great showmen show their talents against each other on the field. And I would love to see a spectacular shootout, Charlton, coming down to a last possession of the game. I think it would bode well for the NFL and future to come.
Yep, I think it will, and that's going to be a great game. Defenses can sit back and watch as the offense of the foreign Big C. The Falcons 2-7 at the Panthers, Carolina Panthers 5-4, and I know did McCaffrey get into the end zone at Green Bay? Let's just say no, because the official said he didn't, so who cares what the videotape shows? It's a 1 o'clock kickoff Eastern Time Sunday on Fox Sports, and the Panthers are favored by 5.5. They have to be smartened by what happened at Green Bay. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he didn't get into the end zone. His helmet got into the end zone, and you got to get the ball into the end zone. And so they lost the game regardless. I mean, why go for that 2-point conversion when they did in the game, and they would have to try to do it again? The Panthers are smarting from last week. I mean, and this is a game that you got Atlanta coming in on a high. They went down to New Orleans and beat up on the Saints at home. Now they're getting an opportunity to go to Carolina. This is a team that they've battled with the past couple of years. Cam Newton was a quarterback. He's not there now, but they've always been a thorn in the side the last 3 years of the Carolina Panthers. When the Carolina Panthers went to the Super Bowl just a few years ago, they went into Atlanta. They were the only undefeated team in the NFL. Suffered that loss in the regular season that left them 15-1.
Yeah, it's going to be a good rival game, division game. Another big game, the Dallas Cowboys, they're 5-4. They're at the Detroit Lions that are 3-5-1. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on Fox Sports, and the Cowboys are favored by 3.5. And if you want to stop the Cowboys, you got to have Minnesota's defensive line, but you also got to have the Dallas offensive coordinator that gave Zeke Elliott the last 3 touches in the game when they needed a touchdown. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is a must-win for the Dallas Cowboys to stay in front of the Philadelphia Eagles in that Eastern Division. Matthew Stafford is not supposed to play for the Lions, so this should be an easy road for the Cowboys.
There's nothing easy in life sometimes, Big C, especially when it appears to be. But here's another game that's not easy, and one team is fighting for a playoff outside position, and that be the Colts. The Jaguars are 4-5 out of Jacksonville at the Indianapolis Colts that are 5-4. That game is Sunday, 1 o'clock p.m. East Coast time on CBS Sports. And the Colts are favored by 3.5, but they have to get some things back, and they got to get their timing back. Something happened when Brissett went out. Your thoughts?
Well, Brissett is due back to play this week, Charlton, after suffering that sprained knee 2 weeks ago. But also Nick Foles is due back for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Brissett could be hurt mobility-wise. The Jaguars have a tremendous pass rush. And will Nick Foles be sharp in this game, returning after a 2-month layoff?
Can't wait to find out. Big C, another game that's lost a little bit of luster is you have the Buffalo Bills. They're 6-3. I remember they were riding high a couple of weeks ago. They're at the Dolphins 2-7. And I really can't tell who the better team is. You can't go by the record in this one. The Dolphins have been playing inspired football. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. And the Bills come into Florida favored by 5.5. But I'm not yet buying it, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, the Dolphins are playing with house money. They're swimming upstream right now, Charlton. The Bills are struggling. It's gotten cold, and we know that the animals like to slow down when it gets cold out on the prairies. And the Bills, you know, they seem to be a contender 3 weeks ago. Right now, I think they're a pretender. I like the Dolphins in this one.
I'm telling you, this team, they found something, Big C. Another game at the beginning of the season. This looked like it would be a must-watch game, and it may still be. The Denver Broncos, they're only 3-6. You know, John Elway put this team together with his own hands, Big C. They're at the Minnesota Vikings, which is 7-3. It's difficult to win in Minnesota. That crowd is amazing. 1 o'clock kickoff, East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. And the Vikings at home are favored by 10.5. And the way they stop Dallas running game, they might just get it. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at Denver, they're going to struggle. They got the free agent rookie Allen playing quarterback in this game, Charlton, because Flacco has been put on IR. The Vikings right now on the road. Dalvin Cook is untouchable out of the backfield. He's going to be the difference maker in this game. The Vikings win in a blowout.
Another big game, if you're in the South. The New Orleans Saints got to have some figuring out, like, what happened against Atlanta. They're 7, and this happened at home when they got had by Atlanta. They're 7-2 in the season. They're at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which are only 3-6. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on Fox Sports, and the Saints are favored by 5.5. But this is that same Buccaneer team that went up to Seattle and almost won, and they went out to L.A. You know, they played the Rams. I mean, they've done a lot of things, played teams close when they don't turn the ball over. I don't think the Saints have the same confidence they would have had with Bridgewater. My thoughts. Your thoughts, 16.
Well, when you look at Tampa in this game, Tampa can score points, and we've seen last week where New Orleans came out flat, and they could not find any spark. They can't come out flat against Tampa, otherwise they're going to suffer consecutive losses. Yeah,
it's amazing. It's a big if the Saints fall at Tampa, you know Coach Arians knows how to look at quarterbacks. Do we see Bridgewater again, or do they just swallow their pride and say that they're going to blame somebody else? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they're going to ride Breeze all the way through the rest of the season. He is the starting quarterback in the New Orleans Saints. You know, Teddy Bridgewater did a very admirable job coming in, filling in over that 5-week stretch where they went 5-0. but you got to get your sea legs back under you. They're getting ready for a playoff run. They're going to win their division. It's just a matter about how many games.
About how many games. Big C, the Jets, Jets. They're 2-7 on the season. They're at the Washington Redskins. What a must-see game 30 years ago, Big C. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time, Sunday on Fox Sports. And the Redskins will most likely get their second win of the season. They're favored by 1.5 points, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is a tough one. Either way you toss it on that. You look at the Jets. I mean, they scored 34 points last week. So maybe they caught their stride at offense. Maybe if Sam Darnold can realize you just throw to the guys in green, the Jets just might win.
Yeah, just throw to the guys in the same uniform. But he hasn't been doing that since he left high school in Southern California. Big C, the Cardinals, they're a tougher team than they appear. They pushed the 49ers when they went down to Glendale, Arizona. And now they're coming up to San Francisco, Santa Clara. They're 3-6-1. They're at the 49ers that are 8-1. They just had that overtime loss to the Seattle Seahawks, Big C. It's a 4 o'clock kickoff East Coast time, Sunday on Fox Sports. And the 49ers are favored by 11.5. Now, I don't know if they'll get it, but they have to still be smart. And they had some injuries last week, and that maybe shut them down a little bit against Seattle, but I still want to credit Seattle with the win. Do you buy 11.5 over a team that you barely slipped by last time? Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at the 49ers offense, Charlton, their running game was not up to snuff last week against Seattle. Their passing game was out without two of their best receivers, Kittle and the kid that they picked up from Denver, the receivers. They've lost two of their top pass receivers.
Yeah.
They're going to have to throw the ball to beat the Cardinals. Kyler Murray is coming on in the latter part of the season. I would not be shocked if San Francisco dropped 2 consecutive games.
Yeah, I think people got to read also on Garoppolo. They got to read on Garoppolo. You got to get pressure on him and make him throw the ball to beat you, and keep him throwing the ball plus 15 yards. When he's throwing further than 20 yards downfield, he's just not the same quarterback, Big C. The Cincinnati Bengals, they're 0-9. Something has to give. They're at the Raiders. The Raiders are 5-4, and they love what's happening in Denver with the Raiders' resurgence, it seems, and the Broncos just going downhill. And also Kansas City hasn't learned how to close out a game lately, and who knows what's going to happen with the Chargers. But you have the Bengals 0-9 coming in. It's a 4:25 kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports, and the Raiders are favored by 10.5. I think the Bengals will stay winless. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, after this game, Charlton, the Raiders will be on a 3-game win streak.
Well, a 3-game win streak, and they're streaking right down to Las Vegas, Big C. Like, thank you, and we won't see you again, Big C. The New England Patriots. Here's another game. It's like NFL has gotten so good lately, as well as college football, in having marquee games. It seems week after week, Big C. We have Houston going into Baltimore, and then we have Tom Brady and the New England Patriots going into the Philadelphia Eagles. The Patriots are 8-1. The Eagles are 5-4, and the Eagles gotta win because Dallas will most likely beat Detroit. It's a 4:25 kickoff Sunday East Coast time on CBS Sports. And who do you like? The last time they played off, Big C, the Eagles knocked them out of the Super Bowl. Your thoughts?
Well, there's 2 different offenses, Charlton, from the last time that they met. A lot of the players that were on the rosters on those days are no longer around with either one of these organizations. New England's coming off a bye week. They're smarting from that loss against the Ravens. When you look at the Eagles, they've been on a heater lately, Charlton. They've been moving the ball offensively.
Yep.
They've gotten all their receivers back healthy. Can that Patriots defense stand up one more time and put up a stalwart opponent? And when you look at the Eagles, they don't have that mobility at quarterback that they face with Jackson.
That's very true. Give me just a thought for thought purposes, Big C. Let's say Tom Brady and Myles Garrett had that same issue last night. And obviously, I don't think Tom Brady would kick anyone in the balls, Big C. And we know Mason Rudolph did, even though everybody pretends they close their eyes on the kick. That's why they have replay for you. You can see things. If we had that happen to Tom Brady, and it never has, it was such an anomaly to happen in the NFL. I'm talking about the ball kick, not the fact that you got a helmet swung at you, and you chase the guy that hit you with the helmet. I'm not dismissing any of it. But in the court, both sides get to talk, not just one. Had that happened to Brady, we be seeing more suspension, Big C, and maybe bigger fines. Your thoughts?
But the difference is it's not going to happen to Brady. Brady is not going to put himself in that position. When you think about a player who cares more about his career and his team, Charlton, they never put themselves in denigrating situations like that. You got to look at the number of times that Tom Brady has been hit throughout his NFL career. He's never reacted to that level, so it's a different class of person.
I want to draw one more comparison. If with Mason Rudolph, you think about what happened with him, and again, all the stuff with Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was the bad guy, but he's been playing better football of late. But it's amazing last night that Baker Mayfield was the one with the cooler head, and then Rudolph was the one, even though no one's held him accountable for kicking the guy in the balls, Big C. But isn't that ironic that the bad guy became the good guy, and the alleged good guy, and given all the benefit of the doubt, became the bad guy? Your thoughts?
Well, Garrett went over the top by utilizing the helmet, Charlton. He could have walked away from the situation. I mean, you had people there trying to separate it. But they both wanted to continue going at it. So, I mean, there's no excuse for either player.
Yeah.
You can't draw a comparison with anybody else because you haven't seen that action before.
That's very well said. Also, Matt Millen punched a GM one time, too, and he went on the broadcast. No one really talks about that, but Matt Millen doesn't have he has unclean hands, too, Big Z. The Chicago Bears, they're 4-5 at the LA Rams that are 5-4. These were two teams last year that were just talked about meeting in the playoffs, Big C. Didn't happen, though. And now you have them playing again. It's in L.A. It's an 8:20 kickoff East Coast time on Sunday on NBC Sports, so the great Al Michaels in Collinsworth. And the Rams are actually favored by 6.5 points over the Bears, which have a good defense, but the offense keeps them on the field too much. If there's any way to stop the run game, have you lost any confidence in Jared Goff without a running game, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know you can say you lost the confidence in Jared Goff, Charlton. You got to look at the protection that's not there in front of him. His offensive line is not the offensive line he had last year, and so a lot of blame is put on Jared Goff and not the lack of protection that he's dealing with. He also had the league's leading rusher at some point last year, and all of a sudden that leading rusher is no longer part of the offense. So you can't put all the blame on one individual. You got to look at those that are not there with the organization any longer and the others who are not producing.
Yeah, also Jared Goff has thrown a lot of interceptions this season, way too many, and his awareness seems to be lacking a little bit in the pocket. I want to see the Rams. It's a make or miss for the Rams. If they fall at home in the Coliseum, then of course there's no talk of wild card. They have too hard of a mountain to climb, Big C. And then I want to stay in another game, but this is going to our brethren in Latin America. Mexico will welcome in the United States Football League, the NFL, and the Kansas City Chiefs at 6-4 will play the LA Chargers 4-6 on the season. It's an 8:15 kickoff East Coast time. It's Monday Night Football on ESPN, and the Chiefs will go south of the border, and they're favored by 4.5 points. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Chiefs need to find a way to play some defense. We all already know what Patrick Mahomes is.
Yeah.
He's the best quarterback in the NFL, hands down. He is a guy who has set the benchmark of what a quarterback should be in the future from this day forward. But as they get down and they can't play defense, Charlton, how many points can he score night after night to propel his team to a victory?
That's very true. Give me a feeling on Phillip Rivers. Maybe sometime when you're having a bad season, you got to get out of town, or sometimes just get out of the country. You think going down south of the border will revitalize him, or will he be pressing to try to keep up with Mahomes and the nouveau riche NFL quarterback? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, where were the Chargers playing before they moved to Los Angeles?
Down in San Diego.
That's right there at the border, Charlton. So I don't even know if that's going south of the border. I think it's more like going back home when you look at the Chargers.
Yeah, I love the game of the NFL, and primarily when you think about all the issues with Colin Kaepernick trying to keep him out of the league for whatever reason, and then you look at Deshaun Watson for the Houston Texans, Patrick Mahomes for the Kansas City Chiefs, and then Lamar Jackson for the Baltimore Ravens. You have 4 quarterbacks, men of color, African American, that have made defenses change the way they decide to defend an opponent, Big C. And I think to see these four guys having the chance on the same weekend to be talked about, I think sometimes the universe will justify things that happen to people, and I hope that Cap gets a chance to make a team. It doesn't matter who likes or hates him. It's just a matter of having an opportunity. I want to say you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on the apps that I love called Google and Alexa. Say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You're here, welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can also follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television, watching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Big C, I want to close out today's show talking about the NBA. And Carmelo Anthony, he's been told that his fingernails are too long, his toenails are too long, Big C. He's lost his jump shot, he can't rebound, but he did find a place in Portland. Hopefully, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, it's been really a year and a half since we've seen Carmelo Anthony on an NBA court and being effective. You wonder if he has anything left in the tank. I mean, this is a guy that's been sitting on the shelf, but Portland feels he gives them the best opportunity versus bringing in a young player or somebody from the G League.
Yeah, it is amazing because Lillard and McCollum are struggling a little bit this year. Portland's usually ahead of the pack, at least over 500, so they're trying to mix something up with a little bit veteran leadership. We'll see what happens. Tonight's Friday's games, Big C's thought is Detroit at Charlotte, San Antonio's at Orlando, Indiana's at Houston. And when I watch Houston, this might be the year. I know they're talking about LA, they're talking about the Clippers. It was always the Golden State Warriors knocking off the Houston Rockets at some point in time. And this, if there's a year when that window opens and you can drive your car through it, Big C, this might be the year to Houston. But they can't fall back on just letting Harden shoot for 47 a game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they still got to contend with a couple teams in L.A., Charlton. Houston always is that team on the fringe. D'Antonio has never had a team that can go and seal the deal in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's true, too. Philadelphia at Oklahoma City is, Chris Paul is not a factor anymore, in my opinion. Philadelphia can get healthy against I won't even say West Coast competition, but Western Conference competition. What do you feel about Philadelphia going in and being a better team this year than they were last year when they were knocked out by Toronto, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, they were knocked out on a shot that bounced on the rim 4 times, Charlton. Philadelphia was a better team in that series. Kawhi Leonard just got a lucky shot off at the end.
Utah at Memphis. Utah's a good team, but they're on the road at Memphis, who can surprise people at times, even though they're not the best programs. Washington at Minnesota. I love the way the Big Cats playing. Boston at Golden State. And Sacramento Kings at the LA Lakers. The Lakers are rolling right now. They're looking like they're primed to be at least in the Western Conference Finals. I mean, it's a long season. If they stay healthy, I really like the way they're looking. It's a shame that when you have Boston coming to Golden State, the last 5 years it would have been a must-see television. Now it's just, give me the remote television, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, this is the state of the NBA. You can only stay healthy for so long, and attrition will catch up with you.
It does catch up with you, just like ketchup on a beautiful hot dog. Big C, 44 years later, talking about the Boston Celtics, the great Bill Russell, he finally accepted his Hall of Fame ring. He was inducted in 1975, Big C. I think Chuck Cooper. And now, when you think about the statuesque of a man, someone who carries the mantle of the NBA and can give out the trophy, the championship trophy, it's nice after all these years, but why so long, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Bill Russell now can finally embrace life as a Hall of Famer, Charlton. He did not want to be inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. He did not want to be the first African-American player inducted into the Hall of Fame, which he was, Charlton, and rightfully so. He deserved that honor. After his illustrious career in the NBA, winning 11 titles, averaging 15 points a game and 22 rebounds a game. But he wanted a friend of his, the first African-American player that joined the NBA, Charlton.
Yeah.
Chuck Cooper. was drafted, 1950. He was the first African-American player drafted into the NBA.
Yeah.
Chuck Cooper died in 1984. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame after his death, Charlton. And Bill Russell always felt embarrassed and ashamed of the NBA because they did not induct the first African-American that was drafted by the NBA into the Hall of Fame. And he did not want to be that trailblazer saying that I was the first in. He wanted Chuck Cooper to go in first, Charlton. Unfortunately, they inducted him 9 years after his death into the Hall of Fame. And Bill Russell finally decided to accept his Hall of Fame ring, Charlton, in a small ceremony at home up in Portland with his family and friends, Charlton.
Yeah.
He had his wife around. He had Lonzo Mourning. Elgin Baylor was there, Charlton. Bill Walton. He had a host of friends, but he did not want a huge ceremony out in public.
Right.
He wanted it private, just like he's kept his life private, though.
Well, he's just a statuette of a man, and I'm happy for him. And sometimes the universe takes time to justify things. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Charlton, I'm looking to a fantastic weekend of college football. We have some teams in the top 10 that are going to fall out of the top 10 because the college football playoff rankings are going to get really tight this weekend, and we're going to see another top team fall.
Well, I love sports. And everybody loves sports, and you can love it too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, it's never, ever too much to ask that don't put up with domestic violence. If you know anyone going through that trouble, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you, on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.